Yo, it's good. It's your man 100 grand roster. The Rock never stops. Today I get an opportunity to do one of my favorite videos. I am doing a retraction video. I'm doing a retraction video because the last two videos I put out on the Memphis Grizzlies, fans started pouring in the comments section, and really, they were just gaming me up. They was like, yo, you've overlooked a whole lot about this team, and we're going to need you to go back, take a look, and reconsider. And you know what? I did. And so in this video, I'm going to dive into some of the things that were brought up that I think are really relevant to the Memphis Grizzlies outlook in terms of how we're looking at them. And so I'm going to dive into that in this video. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe, and the bell for notifications. The first thing is that the Memphis Grizzlies have dealt with injuries to Jaren Jackson Jr., John Morant, Dillon Brooks, three of their core players, probably three of their most talented players on this roster, for the better of the past 2-3 seasons. Jaren Jackson Jr. has missed significant time with injuries since his rookie year. And every subsequent year afterwards, he has missed time due to injury. But not just injuries, but also foul trouble. His inability to stay on the court, picking up what people would call careless fouls, silly fouls, right, has landed him more often than not in foul trouble, which means that the success of this team has not necessarily been built upon him being a centerpiece of what they're doing on offense and defense, right? And so they have been more than acclimated to playing without Jaren Jackson Jr. And last season's success, getting to the number 2 seed in the Western Conference and a Western Conference semifinals run in the playoffs, was not necessarily due to having to depend upon Jaren Jackson Jr. Being their Mr. Everything. Now, on top of that, John Morant missed significant time last season and the years before as well. And Tyus Jones has shown an incredible ability to not just run the show, but allow the team to excel and win at a high level without him, right? Then also, let's not forget, Dillon Brooks was out the first half of the year. Zaire Williams filled in admirably. And so this team already has pivotal pieces that know how to keep this ship not only running, but also thriving without these main guys. And so this was a main point that kind of rebuffed my initial synopsis, that was because of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s absence, they weren't going to be able to keep pace in the competitive Western Conference this year. But apparently, Brandon Clark, Dillon Brooks, these guys, Xavier Tillman, they've already been filling that void this whole time. And so they should be more than ready to do so again next season. And this leads me to the second point, which is this bench is a whole lot deeper than what I initially gave them credit for. Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman, Tyus Jones are all holdovers from last season's success who played major roles. But some of the other guys that I didn't necessarily consider was guys like John Conchar and Santi Aldama. Both of these guys shown flashes last season of being able to contribute at a high level off of the bench, right? But they still didn't necessarily get significant minutes, especially going into the playoffs. But it's to say that these guys have all been working on their games. And at this point, they should be more than ready to be able to step in. Now, when they first told me about these guys, I was like, who? Santi Aldama? John Concha? What? Who are these guys? Like, I've seen Tillman out of Michigan State. You know what I'm saying? I know my Memphis Grizzlies players. Zaire Williams out of Stanford University. I know what his abilities are, right? But when they started telling me about these other guys and people kept saying it over and over again, I thought I would do my due diligence and go back and take a look at these guys. And you know what? They were right. John Conchar is far more than just a, Euro, stash player who comes in, fills in a end of the bench role, and just kind of, lingers around until he finds himself out of the league. He's actually a player. And when I say a player, I mean somebody who can contribute to a roster in a major way. I saw games where he was not only able to shoot extremely well from the perimeter, but he also showed some playmaking ability. His ability to attack the basket off of closeouts, make the right read, passing the ball, and even some facilitation abilities from the perimeter, being able to get good post-entry passes, skip passes, and find the open man. Right? Santi Aldama also showed the ability to rebound pretty well, defend the rim, but also shoot from the perimeter. And his agility as a 7-foot center is something that's pretty uncommon. And having somebody like that behind a Steven Adams only reinforces your bench that much more. So then I had to sit back and say, wait a second. Okay, so if I add these guys into the other three, that leaves us with Tyus Jones, John Conchar, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman, and now Santi Aldama. Okay, so they got a 6-man bench. But then they started telling me about some of these rookies. And I'm going to be honest, I like the rookies. I did a video earlier about how I liked a lot of these young guys who were drafted this past year and who were playing in Summer League. Kenneth Lofton Jr., he looked really good in Summer League. David Roddy looked really good. Jake LaRavia also looked really good out of Wake Forest. And so, but I didn't necessarily think that these guys would necessarily be ready to contribute to a winning team who's trying to stay in the playoff hunt in the Western Conference, right? Because generally you don't want to depend upon rookies. It's good to have a rookie who's playing extremely well, but you don't want to depend upon that guy to give you major production in order to continue to win, because there's a learning curve when it comes to the NBA. Adjusting to the speed, adjusting to the talent level, the size, athleticism, it takes time. But when I started looking at the full bench roster of guys who are already proven, right? The big three of Tyus Jones, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark, right? Xavier Tillman. I mean, big four off the bench. But then you also have now John Conchar and Santi Aldama. So now you got 6 guys who have the experience. And now you have these rookies who have plenty of talent, also able to come in behind them and push them for minutes. And this is really showing me that this team is a whole lot deeper than I initially gave them credit for. The last part that I forgot to consider, and really not so much forgot, but I think I overlooked, was the culture and the system of this team. I'm going to start with the culture. You know, Ryan Russillo is probably one of my favorite podcasters, sports critics, especially when it comes to the game of basketball. And on one of his podcasts a few days ago, he talked about observing the Memphis Grizzlies during the bubble. And during the bubble season, a lot of the media members, staff, coaches, and players all had to use the same workout gym. And he's quoted as talking about observing the Memphis Grizzlies players being in this weight room gym, which generally tends to be kind of hit or miss. Some guys are into it, some guys are not. Some guys are serious. Most of the time, guys are, operating in 1 and 2, pairs and, kind of just doing their own thing. But he talks about how he saw the Memphis Grizzlies go into the weight room as a team. And not just go into the weight room as a team, but they went in with this energy of holding each other accountable, of pushing each other on to really make sure that they're maximizing the time that they have to get better, to get stronger, but that they also seem to have fun doing so. Right? And he spoke to the chemistry that he saw between them, something that was pretty rare for a lot of these other teams. Now, I don't know if it's because they were so young at the time, and they weren't as jaded as a lot of these other players might be after a while. When you get traded a whole bunch and all the politics of basketball and front office moves and the coaching changes and all these other things that kind of make you feel like, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing to make sure that I have the career that I want and look out for numero uno. Looking out for me. Instead, this team actually had kind of that college basketball feel where it's like, hey, we're here, we're all invested, and we're all here together in this. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, what this culture also does is it allows guys to play for one another, right? It allows guys to play for the team, right? And this is a beautiful thing when you're able to have this at a professional level because it's rare. Most organizations don't create the type of atmosphere where you can have this type of a culture. But in Memphis, that's exactly what they got. These guys love seeing one another succeed. These guys love to support one another. These guys love rooting for one another. And it's beautiful to see that in a very genuine way. Not just the end of the bench guys having to take on the role of clapping on the starters, but it's the starters who are excited for the bench guys as well. This is something that you see in some of the best franchises, maybe like the Golden State Warriors, right? You might see this with the Miami Heat, right? Where everybody genuinely loves to see one another succeed. The other part is their system. The system is one in which that they actually require everybody to play at a maximum, meaning that everybody is involved. Everybody needs to be cutting, moving, screening, playmaking, passing, finishing, shooting. Everybody is asked to be able to play a role in this offensive system. Even though at times it did seem like last season it was kind of give Ja Morant the ball and get out the way, right? But that wasn't necessarily at the core of what they are as a team. And I've actually commented before is that I actually think the Memphis Grizzlies need to do more of that, especially in terms of Ja Morant's long-term outlook and his health, than having him just try to take on, the whole defense and make something out of nothing. But to say that they have a system, and they have a system where guys are able to thrive in. And where do we see that the most? Was in the playoffs. When Ja Morant went down, Tyus Jones didn't just fill in, but he was able to go back to what they were already doing successfully throughout the season when Ja Morant was out there, was that they played together. They were able to trust one another, moving the ball around the perimeter, getting the ball inside, attacking the rim, kicking it back out, making the right reads, maintaining spacing, right? These different elements of their offensive system allows them to maximize any mismatch or any opportunity that they have to be able to score in an efficient and easy manner. And this is extremely important in the NBA. You do not want to have to rely upon one-on-one scoring in order to have long-term offensive efficiency in the NBA. Why? Because a good defense is going to be able to take away some of those things that you want to do. Either they're going to be able to load up on that ball handler like the Miami Heat did against James Harden, or what they're going to do is they're going to impede your team's ability to get the ball to that guy, right? Or they're going to force him into things that he doesn't want to do, like packing the paint that the Milwaukee Bucks did against the Chicago Bulls and DeMar DeRozan, right? These are things that are too easy to take away if you're too dependent upon that one-on-one scoring. But the Memphis Grizzlies have a system, and the system works. And so when I looked at these three elements, right, that they have a far deeper bench than what I gave them credit for, and they're far more accustomed to playing without stars than what I initially considered. Not only that, but they have a culture, they have a system, and they have guys who are more than ready to fill in and play at a high level. And so then I had to reflect and say, okay, where do I think the Memphis Grizzlies is going to end up landing next season then? And for me, I had to move them up. I think that they can land anywhere between that number 3 to probably about that number 6 seed, instead of my initial synopsis of about a number 7 or 8 seed. All right, so I'm moving them up, Grizzly fans. I'm moving them up. But as always, let me know what you think in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications, and I'm out. Peace.